Hey, y'all, welcome to Crosspolitic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby Chalk Knox is not here. Yep, there you go. And the water boy.
That's not Chocolate Knox.
No. Let you know, Brandon Shippy. No, not Knox. So, this is a show basically, on Idaho, because we got a legislator in here from
Senator.
the Boise Senator.
Idaho Senator.
It's the same difference.
I think you're a little sloppy with your language.
It is from Boise, Idaho. So thank you, Brandon, for coming on the show, man.
No, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you actually were initially appointed in 2024, and then you ran for re-election in 2025. This last year.
So it was 24. So I was appointed in July to fill the rest of the term, and then was elected
6
in
months.
November.
Got it. Okay, so very quickly re-elected, and so now you're serving your second term technically.
Yes.
You are a native of the Western Treasure Valley, all the way up.
Like 100 generations or something.
Whoa. There's even a town named after your family.
It's more of a village. It's not really a town, but
more of a village.
Or a compound. Maybe.
I'll take it.
Shippyville. Apparently, you can Google that.
Is it really Shippyville?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But no, he was just telling me before the show. He was saved out of kind of a cult, basically,
Yeah.
and became a Christian 2014.
Yeah, in 2014, the Lord saved me. Heard the gospel on the radio.
Yeah. Praise God.
On the radio?
Praise God for Christian radio.
AM radio. Was it AM or FM?
It was FM. It was
FM.
CSN radio.
Because
Actually,
the gospel's better on AM.
Greg Laurie.
Okay.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Well,
Praise God.
Praise the Lord.
Yep.
And you're married, raising 3 kids in the faith.
Did you come out of the same cult Shane came out of?
Yeah.
Our friend Shane?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So you serve now on several committees. Tell us.
Yeah, so because of the appointment, that gave me a little bit of seniority in the Senate. So I'm a second-term senator. That gives me seniority over, I believe it's 7 other senators. Some were returning senators. Others were true freshmen. Some had served in the House and so forth. But that gives me seniority. So I was appointed to serve on the Senate State Affairs Committee, which is the leadership committee where all the big bills go through the legislature. I'm also on Judiciary and Rules Committee. I'm the vice chairman of Judiciary and Rules Committee. And then I also serve on Senate Health and Welfare Committee. And that's a heavy lifting policy committee. We meet 4 days a week. 3 p.m.
Wow.
So afternoon committee. It's tough. You've already done the floor session, and then you're dealing with so many other topics. Health and welfare is probably the heaviest lifting committee as far as all the various topics you're dealing with. But I serve on those 3 committees, and it's a real privilege. It's a big learning curve for sure.
That's fantastic.
The
And
government in Idaho has a health and welfare department?
They do. It actually uses, I think, it's the second in line to the largest budget, or it might be the largest budget in the state of Idaho. It goes through health and welfare.
Is the second largest budget like education or something?
I think
it competes 1 and 2? Are they 1 and 2?
That's exactly what it is. Education and health and welfare. Of course, because Medicaid runs through health and welfare as well. So that's in the billions of dollars.
Yeah. So Christian nationalism would have neither of those. But I mean,
so,
but that's a different conversation for another time.
Moving along. So our legislative term kicks off January. What's the date?
So right now it's January 12th. That's the day the State of the State. Governor Little will get up and we will all parade in as senators. We'll sit in the House chambers below all the House members. We'll sit there and listen to the governor read off a teleprompter, and we'll clap at the appropriate points and then we'll all parade back into our chambers. And
do you guys have a clapping teleprompter? Clap now.
Clap now. Please. Does he have? Who was the one guy who said, "Please clap"?
He read. Was it Biden? He read in his teleprompter.
I don't know.
So there are a lot of formalities. I don't despise the formalities. I actually appreciate the formalities, especially of the legislature and especially of the Senate. I think the formalities are there to slow the process down.
Sure.
You have the different orders of business every day when we're in session. We go through the first order, the second order, the third order, whatever it might be. We advance to different orders, and you can do different things. And very formal. We read the letters from the governor, letters from the House. It's very formal, but the purpose is to slow the process down so it's thoughtful, deliberate. So I don't despise the formalities of it. No. I'll laugh sometimes, but I appreciate it, and I will protect those formalities because it protects the people of Idaho.
Yeah, no, I mean the founders of our country knew that we needed government to move slowly. Because otherwise, it goes fast and it goes tyrannical. It goes mob rule, and so there's actually like intentional kinks slow it down, and that's actually a protection on our liberties as poorly as things have gotten.
Yeah.
So you're working on some legislation though for this new session. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so I've got a list of legislative priorities. I was looking at it earlier, and it's actually made it up to 12 in number at this point. So I know that I'm going to have to trim and prioritize. I've actually had a couple of other folks reach out and say, hey, we would really like to see it around this bill. And so at some point, some of these issues are going to have to drop off and wait.
Shuffle around, whatever.
Because we have 105 legislators, and if each one of us ran 12 bills, we're talking, I don't even know the math off the top of my head, but north of 1,300. We can't do that. We're even running 300 or 400 bills is a huge lift for a 3-month session when we're really there constitutionally just to balance the budget. So running, and these are all policy bills, of course, of mine, and they range from the issue of the right to life of our preborn neighbors being I think the fundamental issue of all other issues, to redoing our pornography laws, strengthening some of the penalties surrounding that, and then defining it more thoroughly. I'm trying to deal with that. That's a massive issue in Idaho, and then other issues surrounding building inspectors in Idaho, trying to deregulate to the point of creating a more efficient marketplace for the building industry, because what is the major issue in Idaho is the cost of housing. Yep. Well, I'm not in favor of taxing you in order to buy you a house, or
which is being proposed in town.
It is, or limiting how much you can sell your house for, or rent it out, et cetera. Those are all the wrong direction. So how can we make the market easier to play in so that the houses can be built at an affordable price? And so that's some of the direction there on the legislation surrounding building inspectors, and we can get more into that if you'd like.
Just one question. We don't need to get too deep in that, but there's a couple of problems in our town particularly. We got this crazy liberal city council. In addition to that, the city staff tends to follow them. And so, time it takes to get a permit is too long, and then that's just for one house, and then you complicate that in a development. The time to get approval of development is insane. It's insane what they do here. So is that going to address some of those issues?
This wouldn't initially address that. This is really starting to go after one of the inefficiencies. Okay. And so this wouldn't directly address that. I would like to move toward that in the future as well, addressing some of those other issues, because that's one of the big complaints. It's always the bureaucratic delays and inefficiencies. So wherever the bureaucracy touches the building industry, it creates inefficiencies, which no business owner can just absorb that. It has to be passed along to the consumer, and so all these inefficiencies cost money. So that's really my primary motivation on running that on that legislation. And what it would do is actually have a transition period to phase out our state inspectors for electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. Just a simple lift at this point, and create the ability for for individuals to have their own private inspection companies that are recognized by counties and cities as any other. And there's so the standards would be the same, but essentially you would have a private market where you actually have customer service. You don't have a true monopoly, and so forth.
Yeah. Oh, that's always better. Always better when you have actual competition.
It's amazing when you just start talking about simple solutions, and you're like, yeah, of course.
Any other particular? I know you said there's 12 other legislative priorities that you think are probably going to make the cut. I mean, you said building inspections. You said pornography laws. Obviously, life. Working to end abortion. Any other priorities?
We have a couple other bills that I'm looking at. They're just simple solutions for some of the constituents in my district. That whether it's dealing with how a local public school can excuse a child, do we need a doctor's note or can a parent's note suffice? That type of thing. So trying to do some tweaks to make sure that there are situations where a parent's needing to excuse their child because of a hip replacement, but they got to continually go and pay for doctor's notes in order to get this excuse, and it just they're living within that system, and that's the reality they're facing. And so, why not make things actually a little bit easier?
Give parents more authority.
For that. Exactly, and that's what it does. It's recognizing parental authority over these children rather than that the parents are just some helping hand in the whole process of raising a child.
Right.
So,
is there any like hot button issues that maybe other legislators also are going to be proposing? What's kind of the broader fight that might be happening?
I'll be honest. I'm not aware of any hot button issue that we're going to be dealing with. That's going to be first and foremost. Obviously, this is election year, so everybody's going to be in a hurry to get in and out of there. Once the budget's going to be balanced, I would say the biggest issue is the budget itself this year. We've got the big budget shortfalls, the big 4% cuts that everybody's feeling, and everybody wants their piece of the pie. And everybody's program is the most important program.
Right.
So those are going to be probably the biggest. Policy is not going to be the major issue in the legislative session, in my opinion. It's going to be the budget. I'm not on the budget committee, so I won't be a part of most of those conversations. But of course, all the budgets need to come across the floor, and so we'll be dealing with that accordingly. But there's a big budget deficit, not budget deficit, but the revenues are down in the state, and everybody still wants the same funding that they had before.
Yeah.
And so, how are you going to balance that?
What do you think is going to happen?
Education's going to get more money. I know that.
So education.
Brad Little loves doing that.
Education likely will still get the funding that they want. It's hard to say where the cuts are going to come from.
Right.
There are a lot of programs in Idaho that could be cut. Whether it's our Commission on the Arts and various other avenues of funding that we do. The state probably shouldn't even be dealing with these issues in the first place. Whether it's cutting back on public television or public radio, those may be some issues that are looked at and cut. But at the end of the day, there's only so much money, and so something's going to have to get cut if our revenues are down. And of course, that was the warning that people had concerns with that appreciate more and more government programs. Is hey, if we do these tax cuts, we're going to have revenue loss, especially as the economy slows and so forth. And it's happened. But I don't come from a statist mentality that we have to have the most flush government in order to have a prosperous society. In fact, government should be kept into their lane, and it actually wouldn't hurt to trim down various programs that are not even the proper function of government in the first place. So.
Yeah.
Right. We passed one question for you. We passed there's a school choice bill that passed last year, and I know that's it's going into effect this coming year. I've seen some noise about it. What's your take on what we did? And is it from massive mistake to not my favorite to you're a cheerleader and you got a new tattoo? I'm like,
I love school choice.
I mean,
tattoo.
Where would you rate us on our Idaho school choice legislation?
Yeah, so I've been opposed to this measure from day one, but I'm coming from the perspective of homeschooling and having family members that have fought for homeschooling, having gone to jail for fighting for it back in the 80s.
Right.
And really what they were fighting for is the right to educate their children without state interference or input. We are the parents. We have the authority from God to educate our children as we see fit. That was what they were fighting for. What the school choice bill did, House Bill 93, is it didn't further anything when it comes to parental rights or authority. What it did was it was a fight for resources. And so money means choices. So that's how they get school choice. So that was really where the issue that I had with it is that where there was government or where there was self-reliance, independent, responsible people, it's now going to create government dependence. And so where the school choice measure, what it does is it offers free money, essentially. It's through a tax credit, up to $5,000 per child or $7,500 for special needs or special needs children, I believe it is. And so what it's going to do is it's going to become built into the budget of these parents. It's not going to get the children out of the school. And this I've disagreed with great men on this, but this is where I'm coming from on this. This is going to become built into to people's budgets that are already outside of the public school system. So the people that are the two-income family that are sending their child to the local public school, this $5,000 tax credit does nothing in their situation to help.
It's not going to incentivize them to move their kid out of the public school.
They have. It doesn't even give them the ability to. If they need to have these two jobs in order to pay their rent, this $5,000 to pay for private education is not enough to pay for private education. This $5,000 is not enough to do anything with homeschooling because it only pays for curriculum and tools. It doesn't pay the parent anything. It's not a wage. So it really doesn't do anything for them. What it does is it enables those who are already homeschooling or sending their children to private school, if they fall under a certain wage bracket, income bracket, to utilize money up to $50 million out of the general fund, money that they perhaps didn't even earn because it's a refundable tax credit. So if you didn't put anything, it's not just, hey, I get to keep my money.
Right.
This is the state stepping in, taking money out of the general fund and paying for your children's education.
Which is other people's money.
Is it other people's money? It might be your own money.
Right.
Maybe you pay a lot of taxes,
right,
but maybe you don't. So this is other people's money. So what it does is it creates government dependency where there was self-reliance. So that's the biggest issue that I see, that it's going to culture a people that should be thinking in terms of self-reliance.
Independently.
Yep. And it's going to culture into them this idea that of entitlement, that we need this money, we deserve this money, and so forth. And the first generation, I say, appreciates it. The second generation expects it. The third generation demands it. And it's the process of entitlement. Yeah. So those are my major concerns. Some said, well, no, statistically, it will draw people out of public school and various things. And they have their various tactics for that. I've just not been in favor of it. No. I think if we had a system where you could keep your money, that would be different. I would be in favor of that.
What do you think about? I mean, so I have pretty significant concerns with the fact that it's refundable as well, and I'm very very sympathetic.
What do you mean refundable? As a tax credit, just kind of the mechanism?
No, that means you get other people's money.
Yeah.
So that's so a refundable credit. Yeah. So a regular credit.
That's if you aren't paying into the system,
right? But a regular credit merely pays back any tax burden you already had. Yeah. But a refundable credit means you can get even more.
Yeah, you essentially, if you didn't even pay anything in, if you didn't even work, you still get up to $5,000 per child.
Okay, I follow you.
So the fact that it's a refundable credit was a kind of a add insult to it. That was kind of the worst part of it in my mind, because I thought, at least if it's just a credit, then it's just people getting back money they actually paid in.
Yeah, right.
That's all it would be.
Yeah.
It's
like you get $2,000 back per kid.
Yeah,
that's a tax credit.
Yeah, because you paid this much in taxes.
Yeah.
And so then, but it's not. It's only up to what you've actually paid in. And then it.
Is that what the tax credit for the child tax credit does?
It's a refundable tax credit too.
Oh,
so you're getting money from other people.
Yeah. Well, I'm paying in a lot. So,
but I'm just saying, like those are the problems, though. That's the soft socialism. That's the socialism going on there, where it's redistributing income.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest concern. I don't know if there's. With this budget and everything, one of the concerns I have is that, like, there is no way you can't, like, open up a massive other spigot to a bunch of other families to take money out of the general fund and then expect taxes not to go up.
Right. So as the demand grows, you've got to raise the taxes.
Yeah. So I thought from jump, like, I'm all for real school choice, real school freedom, which means me keeping money to pay for the schools that I want to provide, the education I want to provide for my kids. I'm all for that. But that's been my concern, is I don't know how you don't open up another massive influx of money to people, and you think, like, where's that money going to come from? Magically? Like, no, it's going to raise taxes, which means we're all going to pay for it.
Right.
And it's just more, it's a more socialist scam. It's more Ponzi scheme, to keep moving the money around.
So Idaho only generates, and I could be wrong on the numbers here, but I believe they're close to this, somewhere around $8 billion in revenue from Idaho taxes. But then we spend 14 or 15 billion, and so
which means we need Fed money.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to raise my Idaho constituent taxes directly, because it's going to make them unhappy at me and kick me out of office. So what I'm going to do is then vote for more federal grants and federal programs to come into the state, because we just want the federal money. Well, the problem is, where does the federal government get their money?
Where are the strings?
Well, the federal government taxes you, and then they just print it and then tax you through inflation.
Right. Yep.
And so it's a lose-lose, but it's a softer blow on my constituents if I just go that direction rather than saying, hey, you want the program? Then let's fund it and I'm going to tax you for it.
It's kicking the can down the road.
Right. But so anyways, I don't know if I wish, if there was even a way to minor tweak it and just make it just a tax credit. Seems like that would at least put a cap on it and say, hey, you can get money back that you paid in and up to that much and that's it. But I doubt people have an appetite to actually mess with that right now. But
you remember my proposal, Toby? My proposal was, I was just talking with Brandon about this yesterday. I've been trying to talk Ben Taves into, he's one of our senators also. Is he a legislator or senator?
He's a senator.
Senator. Right.
He's
you all look the same to me. And
well, in Idaho, they only serve 2 years. They all serve 2 years.
They all look the same. Brandon. Now I'm a legislator racist. But my proposal was, in Idaho, 50% of the property taxes go to the public school system.
Yeah.
And so my taxes, my house taxes are about $4,000 a year. So 50% of that, $2,000 goes to the public schools.
Yep.
So my proposal was, why don't we just if I opt out of public education and I choose homeschool, whatever, why don't I get to keep that 50% of the taxes, that portion that would have gone to the public schools? Just now it does.
It could be another exemption. Like they have homeowner exemption, and then
even this, I was just like, don't even pay it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
they don't pay. You don't pay a homeowner's exemption.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And so what that does, it does two things. For one, it's actually the current money you get is $5,000 per kid, up to $5,000 per kid. This is just I just keep the $2,000.
Right.
So super cheap program. And then number two, it starts to peck away at our property tax problem that we have already.
Sure.
Ben was telling me, I think it was Ben. Maybe I talked to several legislators about this, but Ben was the last guy I talked to. Whoever was telling me, like the county lobbyists on this would fight that tax. They do not want you touching property taxes.
Right.
So our counties are fighting against us on this.
Yeah.
And then of course the state would probably be fighting against it. I mean the whole idea that's like a god, like the property tax thing.
Sure,
it's like God. It's like a no touch. But so it hadn't gone anywhere yet. But that was my proposal.
So I did wanted to ask you about the abortion initiative that's going to be on the ballot likely next fall. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I'm aware of that one.
What's the name of it? The formal name? Do you know what it is?
I don't remember what the formal name is. It's about protecting women or something along those lines.
Okay, so they're collecting signatures, and last I heard, they have to have like 70,000 signatures, something like that, and they had 50,000 last I heard, and they have to have it by April. Is that right? Something like that.
I believe. Yeah, I don't remember the exact date.
Anyways,
but it's
there's
somewhere
some spring date.
It looks very likely that it's going to be on the ballot.
It will.
Most likely going to be on the ballot, and that initiative, my understanding, would basically, return all Idaho legislation to I don't know, what is it, fetal viability or something like that. Like
I haven't read the particulars of this one, but yeah, it's to obviously essentially make
undo what's been done.
Make abortion more accessible in Idaho. That's kind of the general goal of this proposal.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's an evil initiative.
Yeah.
To any initiative that would essentially try to make abortion more accessible, obviously is an evil initiative. Like out the gate. Do
you think it has a chance to pass?
I don't think so. I don't think it will pass. Idaho, identifies, I think, largely as a pro-life state. That will be on a. Let me see. So it'll be in a non-presidential election year. So you won't have the high turnout. So it'd be a little unpredictable. I don't think it will pass, honestly. But
because you need 51% or
51.
Now,
a simple majority.
But my understanding is that in Idaho, the legislature still has to approve even ballot initiatives.
Yeah, so there's an opportunity for the legislature then, after, let's say it passes in November of 26 by whatever percentage.
Let's say 51%.
51% or whatever.
Yeah.
It comes before the legislature, and we can either ratify it or amend it, or I believe reject it. So and you can amend it to oblivion or whatever it is, So there's that option there still. It doesn't automatically.
Could you amend it to where it says Jesus is Lord, and so the rest of this does not apply? I mean, like get back at him,
Right.
We passed your thing. Jesus is Lord. This doesn't count.
Yes.
I'm guessing that like the legislature would. That's a pretty extreme thing for the legislature to reject something that 51% of the constituents in the state passed.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it would take courage to do that, because it would take an understanding that we don't live in a democracy,
right?
That we live in a constitutional republic that is to uphold constitutionally protected rights. Government exists to secure the rights of individuals.
Right.
So, as a legislator, my primary job is not to listen to whatever the voice of the people is saying at any given moment. If they said we want you to deny Toby Sumpter of all rights,
even if 51% of people said it,
even if 66% said it, I have to say no.
Right.
The I cannot violate the Constitution, which has secured his rights, et cetera. So that's where I have to. That's where every legislator will have to stand up and uphold the Constitution that they swore to uphold.
Right. And God's moral law stands over all of that. So, it's like even if a constitution was kind of shaky on something, you could be like, but it doesn't matter because God said.
Right. Yeah.
So talk to us about, I know you are also, you're planning to try to run legislation to further end abortion in Idaho. Talk to us about that plan.
Yeah, so last year, 2025 session, I introduced a bill to essentially establish in law the recognition of the equal humanity. We can't create the equal humanity, but establishing in law the recognition of the equal humanity of our preborn neighbors, and then providing them the equal protection under the law. And this legislation was printed in committee, and then was essentially passed around. We got bill sponsors, and this was the Senate leadership was gracious enough, I guess I'll say. I did appreciate they allowed me to get it printed. This got a bill number. Obviously, I will fight tooth and nail to get it further than that. And tried to last year as well, but
did it get a vote in committee?
It didn't. It didn't even go to a hearing. It just was a print hearing. And that was one of the promises to Republican legislators, that they would get all their bills printed. And so I held them to that. We got the bill printed. Not every bill gets a hearing. Some can see that, you can see that as good or bad. If every bill got a hearing, that we might be there for a long, long time, and not every bill is created equal. So historically, the chairman have always been given discretion to say this bill's not ready, and so that was used to say this issue's not ready. Essentially, Idaho's not ready, or this isn't something we want to take up this session, and so forth. And so that was really some of the reason given why it wasn't given a full hearing. But they did say, hey, we think you should, as a lawmaker, have the right to put this out there and have the conversation at least. So we were able to get it that far. Obviously, I would like to bring it back this session and get a full hearing. This is something that is, I think, the fundamental issue that we can even deal with as a legislature. In our Declaration of Independence, the Founding Fathers acknowledge that we have unalienable rights given by the Creator, and they list out 3. Among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, or blessedness, fullness. Right, this old idea of happiness was not what we think of happiness, but but the first, the government was instituted to secure these rights. So if you don't have the first right, the second right is meaningless. If you don't have the right to life, the right to liberty is
you have no happiness.
It is meaningless. So to me, if you don't have the right to life, you can't even debate tax policy. How can you debate tax policy if you're dead? So government exists primarily to secure these rights, and so the first right is the right to life. So that's why it becomes a weightier priority. Not as though I don't have other priorities that I'm working on, as I talked about before, but this becomes a weightier priority.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like,
rather than my skills.
I want to be judged
By my political beliefs.
I want to get promoted
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up,
I want to be offended by my coworkers
and walk around the office
on eggshells
and have my words policed
by HR.
Words like
grandfather,
peanut gallery,
Long time no see.
No can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety
And do workplace sensitivity training.
all day long. When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder.
just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist. I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.
Currently, as a state, what we've done is we've kind of spoken out of both sides of our mouth. And so what we've done is in Idaho Code, we recognize the equal humanity of the preborn child if a man were to kill a pregnant woman, for example, and so they would get double homicide charges. Okay, but what we've done is and what I've argued many times is that what we've done as a legislature is we've ignored our moral, God-given responsibility and authority and our constitutional authority, and we've tried to take to ourselves our own authority as the legislature. And so if we think about game animals and a deer or a moose or whatever it might be, during the month of October, it's legal to go shoot a deer, but during the month of January, it's not. And so what the state is doing in saying you may kill a deer at this time and at this place and under these circumstances and with these means and so forth, what we're doing is we're saying we have the authority given by God in the Constitution to regulate the issues of life and death surrounding this. We have this authority. But what we do when we do this with the image bearers of God is we claim that the legislature has the authority to regulate the when, where, how, and why a human being can be murdered. And what I've argued is we have no God-delegated authority to do this, nor constitutionally delegated authority to do this. The Constitution is very clear in the state of Idaho and even the U.S. Constitution. But the Constitution of the state of Idaho is very clear that Article 1, Section 2, that all laws are to be applied equally to every person. Okay? And so what we've done is we've said we don't have to do that. We can apply laws differently to our preborn neighbors. And so we violated the Constitution. We violated God's standards of justice. And as setting in on some of the things you were speaking about yesterday with standards of justice, sometimes even we look at it and we say, well, that seems to be too hard to follow. We need to have two witnesses. I saw the guy murder somebody. Yes, God will make it right. God would rather that not everything gets done perfectly in this life to make sure that justice is not perverted. So the priority of justice becomes paramount. So when we talk about and think about the legislature, the legislative authority that we have, does the legislature have authority from God or the Constitution to provide differing weights and measures, differing penalties, differing application of law based upon the circumstances of your conception, based upon the circumstances of or the size of your person or how developed you are, et cetera? It doesn't. Mm-hmm. It has one justification. The legislature has one justification of any law against the murder of an image bearer of God, and it's that they are created in the image of God. That's the only justification. That's the only moral foundation that we have. And so when we look at the legislature's authority, we have no authority to say we're going to provide life in prison or execution for the murder of a born person, but we're going to provide 5 years for a medical doctor that murders somebody that's preborn. We don't have the authority to do that. It's unconstitutional and immoral to do that. And so that's why I have taken the approach that I've taken with the issue of life itself. We can talk all day about, can we compromise on liquor licensing laws and various issues, but right now what we're doing is we are claiming something about the very nature of the preborn child. When we regulate the killing of deer and elk, we are claiming something about the nature of these game animals and our authority over them and our authority over their lives as the legislature. And so when we do this with our preborn neighbor, we are claiming this authority that we don't have. It's illegitimate authority. We don't have the authority to do this. We have one point one point of foundation that we have is they are image bearers of God, and that's why the founders recognized unalienable right to life. And so it's to be applied equally to all. So I can't, as a legislator, I have to have a moral and biblical and constitutional principle by which I apply the application of law in these situations. And so that's why I've approached it as I have, to say we cannot continue to perpetuate the denial of the humanity of the preborn child, because the very nature of this child is denied in our law. We are actually equating them with an animal or whatever it might be. Yeah. By our law, we're communicating this. We're teaching our society something about the nature of our preborn neighbors that actually is perpetuating a lie. And that's why I've stood so strongly on this issue, that this is not just, how can we save some more babies? And we can talk about that. And I'd like to kind of maybe get into some of that as well.
And Idaho Code actually doesn't the criminal code actually define the taking of human life, even unborn life, as murder?
Yeah, so it does.
Yes, it does. And so it's actually in our code
from
back in the day. And then my understanding is that
except for
after Roe versus Wade or whatever, there was some exception language built in that said, except for, basically if a mother decides to go and hire a man.
Yeah. So it was prior to that. So it was prior to Roe versus Wade being overturned. Idaho Code actually acknowledged the equal humanity of the preborn child. It's still in Idaho Code, but it's really not applied in those, except in those limited cases where somebody kills a pregnant mother in a car crash, and now they get 2 counts of vehicular homicide, whatever the charge may be. And so what happened was that in that code, it created an exception for if a abortive woman wanted to kill her own child, then the doctor and the mother had complete immunity. And so what we did was we said, we're going to, as the state legislature, we're going to create these more restrictive laws. Now, Roe versus Wade didn't allow us to really do anything. So we created what was called a trigger law. Right. And so it was to go in effect if it should ever be overturned. And so some legislators admitted later, or somewhat admitted, that they voted for this and supported it
because they thought it'd never.
They had the cover,
right?
And they actually come out and apologize for supporting it. And so what happened? But what happened was it created a completely separate crime. It's called criminal abortion. So it's a completely separate crime. It's criminal abortion. It's not treated as murder. It's not even acknowledged as murder. And this is the major issue with my issue with this law is that, number one, it provides a 3 to 5 year penalty for an abortion doctor if it performs an abortion and lose their license and so forth. If we did that with anybody whose skin is darker than this, they get 5 years. But if they're darker than this, they get 3 years or 2 years or 10 years, whatever it is. Or if they're under this age, you get this amount. Like, we would say that's unjust weights and measures. That's partiality in the law. We can't do that. But yet we've done that with this so-called criminal abortion. And part of it was to make it more palatable. Is, we're going to compromise. We're going to meet in the middle somewhere, and so forth. But then what it did was it created a rape exception. So if you were conceived in a certain circumstance, we as the legislature of the state of Idaho have determined your life has no value or worth. We have no constitutional or God-given authority to do that. But yet we've done that as a legislature in the name of getting something done and saving babies. And so is our primary goal to save babies, or is it to do justice and provide equal weights and measures, and in providing justice, save babies? So, the Democrats say, well, we're saving lives every day by we're trying to save lives by pushing restrictive gun legislation and so forth. If we restrict and I hear these arguments, we need to restrict abortion pills. Do guns kill people, or do people kill people? Mm-hmm. Do we restrict the murder weapon, the use of the murder weapon, or do we just criminalize the act of murder? So if we were to say, well, let's allow murder, let's decriminalize murder of the born.
But there is a difference between something that has multiple just uses and something that's designed to do something that is just unjust. Wouldn't you say there's something different there? So guns are used for multiple just things, and of course, yes. So that's why the emphasis has to be on who's wielding it, and so the people kill people. But if you have a pill that's basically designed to kill unborn babies, and it has no other real just use, then why not outlaw that? Because that's more. Yeah.
So what it does is you set up a precedent, and you violate the principle is what you do. So when you start to restrict the murder weapon instead of criminalizing the act of murder.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we should do it instead.
Right. But that's what's being proposed by a lot of groups and think tanks. They're saying we should restrict the use of this rather than actually treat this as an actual homicide. Right. And so the major issue is some of these abortion pills, the chemicals used in there can be used for other medicinal purposes. And it's, taken in combination with these two, it can murder your child.
Sure.
But the issue is what we're doing is we're violating the principle of our freedom of movement to buy our own gun, buy our own, various pills or whatever we want to do. But what we're saying is what we as a state are going to step in and start restricting movement. And how are you going to do that? Well, we can start monitoring things, all in the name of saving babies. What I'm saying is you can justify any law as long as you can say, well, I can conceive that it'll save a baby, therefore I'm going to support this law, that law, the other law. What I'm saying is our primary goal isn't to save babies. If I was a Christian ministry where like, hey, we exist to save babies, well, that's not I can't enforce law as a lawmaker. I can only create law if I get enough consensus, of course, in the legislature, but I'm a lawmaker. I can't enforce it. So I can't even, and the thing is, we know that if you criminalize murder, it doesn't save every person. Murder still happens. But what we don't do is start restricting the possible murder weapons you can purchase and possess, observing every movement that you make so that you don't murder your neighbor. So we just criminalize the act, and if there's probable cause for, if there's articulable suspicion that you've committed a crime, then we launch an investigation. If we launch the investigation, we find probable cause for an arrest, we arrest, and with a warrant and so forth. There's a process. So the Democrats, honestly, they bring that approach, the statist approach, that we need to prevent every death possible of school children or whatever it might be. So we need to get rid of long range rifles or high capacity magazines and so forth because they believe they're going to save some school children.
Yeah, I guess
I want to. So I agree with you. We want to be careful about violating the principle here. Playing the devil's advocate on this question here, but the problem I see is that we don't apply that to other areas. So meaning, we were just talking about public education earlier, where you're proposing a bill so parents have more parental authority in their public education, but we're still violating the principle that we have public education. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to the principle of and why I've really approached the issue of the Imago Dei, the image of God, differently even than other issues such as, should we be restricting the sale of liquor, or should we just not be involved at all, and so forth, or can we take an incremental approach to stripping away some of these restrictions and making it freer to operate in the market? The fundamental difference is every time that we pass or promote these laws that show that essentially are claiming this authority over life and death of an image bearer of God, we are actually denying the Imago Dei when we are saying that they don't have a fundamental right to life. That's what we've done in Idaho law. We are saying if you're committed, if you're conceived in rape, you don't have a fundamental right to life. You deny the Imago Dei. When you deny the Imago Dei, we are God's image bearers on earth. When you deny God's image, it is a denial of God himself. So to me, this is very fundamental in how we approach this. We have to affirm the Imago Dei. We have to affirm the truth about the nature of the preborn in the law itself. That's why I've approached it that way.
But if all authority is given from God, then disobedience to that authority is defying God.
Sure.
And the Imago Dei, I 110% agree, is absolutely
foundational to our politics. Essential.
But I don't know how you separate that from the principle you're arguing from. So the fact that we have government schools defies the living God. Defies, spits in God's face and says, no, our magistrates can tax people and run schools, even though you didn't authorize them to do that, and you gave that to parents and families to do. Our state does that. And then we're going to pass a law that says parents should have more rights in those. Aren't you playing that game? I don't know. And the same thing with liquor licenses. Same thing with.
I want to open my own liquor store.
We know, Gabe. But the same principle that you're arguing for, I think Gabe is exactly right. It's like in order to hold that consistently, I don't know how you can participate in any of those things, because in principle you're going along with defying the living God.
I think when it comes to I would separate it still in that what you are doing is you're denying the image of God itself. If I were to support the Idaho Defense of Life Act, which it's denied the very nature of the image bearers of God, and it what it does is it perpetuates the lie that the legislature has this authority.
But that's
from
what
God
liquor
or the
licenses are doing too.
When we look at the Idaho Constitution, for example, as a legislator, we all swear to uphold the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the Constitution says the legislature shall establish and maintain a system of free, common public schools. So, for example, that is a constitutional duty of the legislature
Which
to
is
do.
disobedient.
Which is defying God.
So that's and that, and we can wrestle around all day about whether or not that a Christian can swear to uphold the Constitution. In the state of Idaho, can they swear to uphold that Constitution as I did? And that was something that I thought through. Could I swear to uphold this Constitution? And the other thing is, so when I'm talking just about the legislative duty as established by the Constitution, and then their description, their job is defined by the Constitution, is that we are to equally protect all life under the law, equally to apply all the laws under the law. So on its face, it's blatantly unconstitutional, where the other ones are constitutional in Idaho, and then we can talk about whether or not they're moral or immoral. But what I'm saying is this is clearly immoral and clearly unconstitutional.
Toby, I want to ask you actually the same question. Because I agree the principle of life, which is
right.
And but then how do we not violate that as Smashmouth incrementalists?
Right. Well, I guess the part of it is what I was going to ask earlier, was going to say earlier is I agree completely that principles of justice have to govern what we're willing to do and what we're able to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we get to make it up as we go along, and I also don't think that we get to justify breaking rules of justice just based on utilitarian things. Like we think we're going to get more done. So I agree completely there. However, I do think that when you're in the middle of I don't think that there's any judicial system that is pristine and perfect. There's no system.
Humans made it.
Perfect justice exists in God and in His Word.
Yeah.
But what we're always doing is approximating that justice. We're always trying to do as best we can to make city code and county code and state code and federal code. We want it to be an echo. We want it to match what God has done. But it's always it's always an approximation, and so. That's never going to be perfect. We're approximating it, and I think my argument would be I don't think limiting the number of abortions that happen in a state is on par with gun control. I just deny that as a premise that's the same thing.
Okay.
I think that when you are in a position where you need to end the murder of unborn babies. You take whatever you can get to get there.
Yeah.
And again, not whatever you can get, because that doesn't justify anything.
Yeah.
But I think, do I think that we ought to have a separate abortion code in Idaho criminal code? No, I don't think that's ideal at all. But I do think, to the extent that it is teaching our state that abortion is murder, I think it's glorious that we have brought the abortion rates down as low as we have. I'm so grateful for that. And I think, but what we need to do is, and this is the Smashmouth part, and is we need to keep talking about this out loud about, should there be rape exceptions? Of course not. Of course we should not punish a baby for the sin of its father. Mm-hmm. That's unjust. That's wicked.
Yeah.
And the same thing would go for, should we have code that treats this kind of unjust taking of human life differently than taking other unjust human life? No, I don't think we should have that long term at all. That's not good. But that means, but we have got to get there. We've got to work towards it. And yes, is it insane? Is it absolutely insane that we have to have that conversation? Is it absolutely insane? Like, your point about, if you have this much melanin in your skin or this much, here are the penalties. Everybody looks at that and says, that's absolutely insane. Exactly. And it's absolutely insane that we have to have this conversation about, no, you can't kill your baby. No, not at 20 weeks. No, not at 10 weeks. No, not when it has a heartbeat. No, it's insane that we have to have that conversation. But when you live in a land that has built altars to Molech and is busy offering babies to the fires of Molech, that's the insanity that you live in. Sin is insanity. And so I think that's why I would say, yes, we can't stop there. And so I'm very, very sympathetic with the persistent, the calling out of pro-life organizations that, think that because they got some regulation passed, they won. No, we didn't. We haven't won until Idaho code simply says murder is murder. And it's going to be prosecuted as such because all human life is sacred before God. We got to get there. That's the goal. Absolutely the goal. The question I think where we differ is on how we get there. And what I would say is it's permissible to take steps to get there, which are every single step along the way doesn't mean you've arrived at that conclusion. And I don't think it's necessary to say unless that conclusion is, unless that is that immediate conclusion is what is on the table. I can't support anything else. I just don't see that as that doesn't follow the biblical pattern. I think all through Old Testament law, God teaches us that when He's dealing with hard-hearted sinners, He deals with them in ways where sometimes He says, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the best that we can do right now." And God Himself does that, and He sets the precedent and sets the pattern for us. And I think we learn wisdom from that, and we say, "Okay, sometimes this is the best we can do because of hard-hearted sinners." It's not an ideal law. It's not a perfect law, but it's what we can do for now to limit this bloodshed. And then we need to come back and we need to fix it. We need to do better next time.
So I'm going to take over this conversation now and not let this go repeat the debate that we already had. Toby mentioned here that Idaho abortions have dropped because of the law that passed. You mentioned the other day when we were having lunch that you actually said adoptions have gone up, likely because of the law.
So
you want to talk about? I'm not trying to.
Yeah. So Idaho
set
Health
these things against each other, but what I'm trying to. You mentioned something very interesting that you didn't flesh out for me. I'd love to hear more about.
Absolutely. So and this is really, I guess, even responding to what Toby had said as well. Can we justify the laws we've passed by the idea or reality, however we want to look at it, that we save babies, right? Is it justifiable? So that's more the pragmatic. Are we making steps in the right direction? Are we actually moving in a direction right now? So health and welfare tracks how many babies are adopted at birth. So basically they're up for adoption before the birth, and they have increased about 4 or 5 a year. Have increased under those circumstances, and they don't know, but they attribute that to our restrictive abortion laws. Yeah. So they attribute that.
Just 4 or 5 a year statewide.
4 or 5 a year statewide. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't others who just decided to keep it and raise their own child.
Yeah, okay.
We don't know that.
I see
when it comes to the abortion numbers themselves, basically, we had a way of tracking them through health and welfare, through the abortion clinics. And when we passed when the trigger law took effect, it pretty much just eliminated that.
Yeah.
And so
whether it's happening or not, because it's at least it eliminated keeping track of the data, because
exactly.
it's illegal for us to keep track of the abortions now.
Exactly. So let's say you have murder centers of grandmas, and where you go in, you report that you murdered your grandma. It was all done publicly. It's reported through health and welfare.
Yeah.
And but now we say no, you're not allowed to do that in this way. And so now everybody they're ordering their grandma murder weapons, but they're just doing it on their own because it's still legal
and not reporting.
You're still legal. You just can't hire a doctor to do it anymore. Yeah. You just have to do it in your own bedrooms.
Yeah.
And so forth. But there's also reporting. So they've also seen that abortion numbers haven't decreased nationwide, nor in the states that have very restrictive abortion laws. They haven't decreased. They see that through, and they're very conservative on their numbers. So they believe only about 80% or about 20% of abortion pills that are ordered actually accomplish a murder. So that's kind of the number that they've established as probably reasonable through the areas where they know it occurs and so forth, because a lot of people just have stashes of them, and whatever it might be. So what has happened is we've made certain modes unavailable with our abortion laws, and so abortions have just simply switched to other modes. And so if our justifiability of our laws is that they are saving babies, if that's the end all principle, arguably we haven't really accomplished what we set out to accomplish. And if that's what we're trying to accomplish is saving babies, we haven't really made progress in that area. Or at least in a way that we can be sure about. We can say, well, we've maybe made progress in this area or that area, but ultimately, babies are still dying legally in Idaho every day. Statistically, around I think it's around 8 a week, something like that, or 9 a week. Statistically,
I won't hold you to that.
Sure.
I think the goals are much broader than I think it is. I think it should be saving babies, and I think I'm not sure that it's accurate or true that we actually aren't saving babies. The fact that their doctors are not legally performing these procedures anymore is glorious. I'm glad that it's just not happening.
Wait, so Brandon, you would maintain that Idaho's abortion deaths every year are probably still some sort of similar to what they were before the law? What would you maintain there?
That's what the data shows, that they really haven't decreased. A lot of Idaho babies are simply being shipped out and aborted in other states, of course, but there are a number of them likely that are happening here. There's no, because the thing is, it's not being reported in the way that it was before, where it was something that was done in a medical clinic, and it was being reported.
But that's glorious that it's not being reported. Like I guess I want to say, like, in terms of our public life, I want it to be a shameful thing to murder your baby. So I think getting it out of, I can report this on an official doctor's form. That's wicked that we were doing it. Now you can still technically do that.
Brazen.
Yeah, brazen.
That's crazy.
So even though I don't know how much abortion has decreased, I think it's glorious that the official numbers have catastrophically dropped.
Yeah.
That you had numbers where people were filling out paperwork and saying, this is how many babies I murdered.
It's amazing.
And now it is dropped to virtually zero. It's very, very low. And some of them are actually maybe life of the mother, like true life of mother issue instances, which are still, they're medically technically called abortions, which it can include an instance where you have to deliver a baby because the mother's life is in danger, and we don't have the medical means of keeping the baby alive. That's not murder. We're trying to say
both.
Trying to save as much life as we can, but medically speaking, that is sometimes still registered as an abortion. But my point is that even that all by itself is glorious because it's driving it out of the pub. It's saying that's shameful. That doesn't belong on official medical paperwork. You can't report that as a doctor and hold your head up high. And I know some would, and I'm sure there's some really bad doctors out whatever. But I'm just saying, like, that all by itself is a win. I also think, though, that, I think you have the hard hearts of people, and they're going to go get their abortions one way or the other, which would still happen, as you said earlier, even if it was like completely outlawed. Murder is outlawed, and people still commit murder. So people would still do that with abortions.
Go across other states, to other states, whatever.
And you do have the issue of going to other states, and that's just a challenge that we're going to have to figure out at some point, especially when you have states
like Washington next to Idaho.
That are actually not only just like allowing it to happen, but sometimes are like also paying for it to happen, and also also have
incentivizing vacations
and have passed laws that protect their doctors from any kind of lawsuits and all the rest of it. So I mean, there's some interstate stuff there that we have to work through and figure out.
Yeah.
And I also know you've got the the mail problem where people are mailing out
abortificants.
Getting those things, but I guess I would just still say I do believe the laws have significantly reduced what is at least publicly being advertised as we killed our babies, and I think that's glorious.
So a couple things. So number one, we have to understand that God is a God of bringing beauty from the ugly. He can bring good from bad, and we see that all throughout Scripture. We see that in our lives all the time. But when it comes to, so there are a couple things. So number one, I would presume that there have been babies saved as a result of our pro-life laws. I believe that is the case.
Yeah.
And I can praise God and for that and rejoice that babies have been saved.
Incremental praise, though.
Praise God. Praise God. Whatever He has done and brought about as a good from our pro-life laws. So praise God for that.
From our ashes,
But let me throw out a scenario here. I'm guessing you guys have teenage sons, but if your teenage son got his girlfriend pregnant, and then he tried to argue to you that, hey, Dad, this is actually good because look at your beautiful grandson. This is a beautiful grandson. He's got all this. He bears the image of God, and it's such a wonderful gift from God. This is a good thing. You say, no, son, you need to repent, and you shall not do this again. Right? And so just because laws have been passed, laws that I've argued deny the image of God in the preborn child, they apply unjust weights and measures. They perpetuate a lie about the nature of the preborn child. Just because God has done something good from that, and I can rejoice in that. You can still delight in your grandbaby, but say, son, never again.
And you should.
And so what I'm saying is, as a lawmaker, do I look at statistics? Do I look at this beauty came from this, or this good thing came from this unjust law, therefore it justifies me participating in running more unjust laws? Or do I approach it from, what is God's will? What is God's will for your son? No, son, you need to get married. Because they're actually, we could even look at it from a practical perspective. There are long-term ramifications to not following God's order of
single
things.
Parenting is statistically horrible.
So when I look at, praise God that babies have likely been saved in Idaho. But as a lawmaker, do I look at the short-term things that are good and say, I'm going to base my future actions on that? I say, no, I have to look at the wisdom of God and then shape our laws and policy based on His will. Otherwise, the long-term, even just from a practical perspective, the long-term outcomes will not be good because we're going to continue to deny the equal humanity of our preborn neighbor, and that has long-term ramifications. Now, when we think of a baby in the womb, we've been taught by our laws that they're different in nature than we are. And that has judicial precedents, and that has all kinds of other
cultural problems
that we are establishing in law. So as a lawmaker moving forward, I can say, praise God that babies have been saved. But that doesn't mean that I am supposed to move forward with the same action. I still have to ask the question, what should I do to establish justice? So that's why I don't deny that God has done good. But that doesn't justify me in saying, well, I can continue to do this because God will surely bring good out of it.
Sure.
Right. Yep. Well, it's lunchtime, so I'm just gonna. It's lunchtime. I'm starting to shake.
Thanks for coming on, Brandon.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Senator Shippy. Until let's see, what are we gonna do here?
I don't know. Sometime.
This show's coming out before Christmas.
Maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
Hopefully.
We don't know quite know what we're doing. Anyways, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Crosspolitic.
You didn't tell anybody to baptize their babies.
Baptize them.